Welcome to the Undisputed podcast. I'm your host, Jenny Taft. This podcast is the full show from today's episode of Undisputed from start to finish. They've got a busy slate, so skip Shannon. Let's get to it.
Good morning. Welcome to Undisputed. I'm Jenny Taft with Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharpe. How are we doing today, guys?
We're doing great. I know someone is extremely happy about the subject that we're about to start the show with today. It's very near and dear to his heart.
Yes, that's why I have bad news for Shannon Sharpe and great news for me and our viewers. We are going to start this show talking about Michael Jeffrey Jordan. Take it away, Jenny.
All right. How about that for a setup? We are going to do it. We are going to talk all things Michael Jordan because we are all patiently awaiting the release of the Last Dance documentary, talking about his final year with the Bulls. And just this morning, Michael Jordan said that last season in Chicago was a trying year. He also said that GM Jerry Krause told Phil Jackson that the team could go 82-0, but he'd still not get the chance to come back. And Michael Jordan was not going to play without being coached by Phil Jackson. Skip, you were there. Could you believe this was happening?
Jenny, Shannon, 1998, I was the columnist for the Chicago Tribune. It was the greatest year of my career, and yet it was the most astounding of my career because what I was seeing unfold right before my very eyes. And remember, I had witnessed Jimmy Johnson and Jerry Jones falling apart after winning 2 Super Bowls together in Dallas, and this topped that. And lately, obviously, we've seen what happened between Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. I believe this topped even that. I got to know that year Michael Jordan and Phil Jackson and a guy named Jerry Krause. Jerry Krause, for those who don't know or don't remember, was a chubby little guy with an ego even bigger than Michael Jeffrey Jordan's. Jerry Krause had played a little high school baseball growing up in Chicago and had started basically as a baseball scout in the White Sox organization owned by Jerry Reinsdorf, who also owned the Chicago Bulls. For reasons nobody could figure out, Jerry Reinsdorf elevated Jerry Krause to be the GM of Michael Jordan's Bulls. Jerry Krause did not draft Michael Jordan. He came the year after Rod Thorne drafted Michael in '84. Jerry Krause started in '85. And as slowly but surely the thing grew into the Bulls dynasty, Jerry Krause came to despise Phil Jackson because Phil Jackson had little to no respect for this little guy who thought, as Phil told me, he thinks he's the alpha of this dynasty? What? He's out of his mind. So Phil would openly ridicule little Jerry Krause in front of everybody to the point that when they signed their last one-year deal, as Jenny read, Jerry Krause told Phil Jackson, you could go 82-0 next year and I ain't bringing you back. Well, guess what? Michael Jordan had pledged public allegiance to Phil Jackson. If he goes, I go. And Shannon, I just couldn't believe that Michael was going to actually quit if, in fact, Jerry Krause actually fired Phil Jackson and prematurely blew up the dynasty. But you know and I know that's exactly what happened. And it got so bad that the summer going into that Last Dance year, that's what Phil called it, the Last Dance, Jerry Krause's daughter got married in Chicago, and he had the audacity to invite Tim Floyd, the coach at Iowa State that everybody knew Jerry loved and wanted to bring in as the Bulls coach, to the wedding and did not invite Phil Jackson to the wedding. That's how bad it got. And yet, Shannon, I still couldn't believe Michael was actually going to quit over this, and he did. And my final point to you, Shannon, and then I'll hand it to you, is that 2 weeks after the season ended, with obviously the last shot holding the pose at Utah in Game 6, 6th championship, 6th MVP in the finals for Michael Jordan. I was walking with Michael in a Pro-Am golf tournament that he was playing in Chicago. He asked me to come inside the ropes with him. And on one of the holes, on a par 5, he hit his tee shot into a fairway bunker and asked his caddy for his 3-wood. And Shannon, you know enough about golf through your older brother, Sterling. Yeah. To try to hit a 3-wood out of a fairway bunker is a really hard golf shot. And I said to him, Michael, that's a tough one. And Michael said to me, no, it's not tough. I'll just imagine that the ball is Jerry Krause's face. It came to that. I'm going to hit that. And by the way, Michael nailed the shot and almost made it in 2 shots to the green because he's envisioning I'm going to whack Jerry Krause in the face on my golf ball. That's how bad it got in 1998 in Chicago.
Well, Skip, you were there, and we heard the same things, that no matter what had transpired, that they weren't coming back, that 2 three-peats was not going to be enough for Phil Jackson to retain his job. And Michael Jordan has said, I'm not playing for another coach. Now, Skip, at the time, I had only met Michael Jordan once, but I didn't really know a whole lot about him, hadn't spent a lot of time, and didn't know a whole lot of people. But after being around him just a little bit, knowing people that spend a lot of time, I am absolutely not surprised he didn't come back. Skip, you know one thing about that man. That man is stubborn as a mule, as a bull. And once he tells you something, or once he says he dislikes you, he has nothing else to do with you. If he feels you've crossed him, Skip, remember when Charles Barkley criticized him, not the player, but criticized like, Mike, you got too many yes men around you. That was it. Done. He and Charles had been friends, play golf together, go to Vegas, yada, yada, yada. That was it. But, Skip, the thing is that what we see, and you're older than I am, and so you covered sports and you know things about dynasties. The thing that kept the Bulls together from a player standpoint is that nobody thought they were Michael Jordan's equal. What broke the Warriors up, Skip, we're going to talk about this a little later, was the infighting, and that KD didn't feel he was getting the praise and adulation that Steph Curry got. Kyrie and LeBron. Kyrie felt he was on a level with LeBron, and he wanted to show he can lead his own team. Kobe and Shaq. Well, Michael never had that. Scottie Pippen and Rodman and B.J. Armstrong, none of those guys felt there was Jordan equal. But there was someone that felt he was the equal as far as the general manager and was not getting the credit that he deserved. And that was Jerry Krause. And normally, Skip, what happens is general manager and owner, or coach and owner. We don't really never see it get to this level like this, where we're having a level of success that's really unprecedented outside of maybe the 60 Celtics. And then as you mentioned, Jerry Krause couldn't have been much more than 5'3", 5'4", rotund, and all of a sudden, you want the credit? Not one. You didn't take one dribble. You didn't take one shot. You didn't take on one screen, fight over the top of a screen, and you want credit. I've never seen anything like it, Skip. I had never seen, and I still haven't to this day, seen a general manager that basically sits up in the stand. Jerry West, and we know a lot of the general managers, from Jerry West to Ozzie Newsome in different sports. Skip, they sit, Theo Epstein, they sit up in the stands, and they're fine. But Jerry Krause wanted the credit, Skip, because he knows this. They chronicle dynasties. And he wanted to be chronicled in a favorable manner. Well, I put this together. And Skip, he went out of his way. If Michael Jordan says, we need a T-shirt, he went and bought a jock strap. If Michael Jordan said, we need a Gatorade, he went and bought Coca-Cola. That's how he was. It was like he did things in spite of Mike. I've never seen anything like it.
And Shannon, you played pro football for a long time, and you played for 2 different franchises, 2 different owners.
Correct.
And yet you saw your friends on other teams, and you saw how the game is really played off the field, the big business that can be pro sports. It still starts at the top. It starts with a Jerry Reinsdorf, owner of White Sox and Bulls, making the choice, the decision to say, I'm going to put little Jerry Krause, because I get a kick out of Jerry. He's kind of like me. We're kind of brothers. We're kind of birds of a feather from Chicago. We came up the hard way together. And he said, I'm going to put little Jerry Krause in charge of the Bulls, and I'm going to give him full authority. He can hire, he can fire, he can trade, he can do whatever he wants to run the Chicago Bulls. I will not interfere. He has full autonomy to pull the plug on that dynasty. Jerry Reinsdorf allowed that little man with that huge overblown ego to prematurely end what I think was the greatest dynasty. We're going to debate this a little later in the show. But he pulled the plug on it and got away with it over personal differences with a coach who publicly ridiculed him in front of other front office staffers and humiliated him. So he was allowed to do that, and that's the essence to me of pro sports. Michael Jordan, to me, was the greatest player ever. You think it's LeBron, I think it's Michael, but as a performer, he was something. I keep thinking back what Stephon Marbury said a couple days ago, that he was not from the earth. That's how I viewed him in 1998, getting to know him and being around him on a daily basis. And to think that this is the way pro sports work, that little guy sitting up in that office who barely played high school baseball can prematurely end the dynasty and the career of Michael Jordan, that's it. It was enlightening to me. It was an awakening for me. It was sad to me that in the end is how it was going to work. And yet, to your point, whether you call it pride or stubborn pride, Michael Jordan stuck by his guns, and he did not play basketball for 3 years after that because he was Phil's guy. And if Phil's gone, I'm gone. And Phil went on, obviously, to coach the Lakers, and Michael did not go on to play again for 3 years until he went to the Wizards late.
Yeah, and Skip, the thing is that Michael being who he was, and I felt that we don't know, and, you know, we're going to talk about this a little later, but as Michael has said many a times, he believed they should have been allowed to come back until someone beat them. Not give it up, not give up the reins, not abdicate the throne, make someone knock us off the throne. And Jerry Reinsdorf and Jerry Krause allowed this to happen because, as you said, Skip, Jerry Reinsdorf is the owner, and Krause was acting at the behest. It was like, you have total autonomy. You want to trade a player, trade said player. If you want to, you know, get rid of this guy or do whatever you want to do. And like I said, Skip, there was times, you know this firsthand because you were there, you covered the team. There were times that Michael would want a certain player, and it was almost seemed like that Jerry Krause would get the antithesis of said player just to spite. Oh, you want him? Oh, you really want him? And this is like, okay, the Bulls about to trade. And they're like, I don't think Michael wanted that guy. But that's, Skip, normally when players, they bicker back and forth, the owner or the general manager would say, figure it out. Skip, how did the owner tell the general manager and the head coach or the general manager and the best player, y'all get in the room and figure it out, when the general manager feels that he has so much control? You know, really, Phil, your coach is in Chicago is in my hands. Michael, Skip, Jerry Krause knew what Michael would do if he took Phil away. He wanted that because he wanted to show that he was the show. He knew Michael would leave. If you've been around Michael for any length of time, and a lot of the people that I've talked to have been around him for a length of time, if he says something, take it to the bank. And Jerry Krause knew that. That's why he said, even if he goes 82-0, he knew Michael would walk. He wanted Michael to walk. He wanted to get more. Skip, now it's a situation, as you mentioned, Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. If I win without that guy, what now? I didn't need Michael Jordan. I didn't need Phil Jackson. I'm winning championships with Tim Floyd, which you and I both know was never going to happen, that Michael Jordan was the driving force. Michael Jordan was the it. Okay, yeah, Scottie Pippen was a tremendous player. Michael Jordan was the engine. No car is going anywhere without the engine. I don't care what type of tires or what kind of body it has. It's not going anywhere. And Michael Jordan was that. But Jerry Krause refused to see that, Skip, because he wanted the credit. Skip, and that happens a lot. It happens a lot. I'm surprised. I'm not surprised because there was no equal on that team. But Skip, most of the times when we see dynasties, it's normally the players. When a player says, I'm the equal to the top billing, and if I go somewhere else and show you, I can show you what I can do. And so that's what we've seen happen between some of these dynasties that we think ended prematurely. But this dynasty ended because of Jerry Krause and his ego. He felt he deserved and wanted more credit, so he broke it up.
And to your point, Shannon, there were a couple of times when Jerry Krause did save Michael from his Carolina self, because there were a couple of times that Michael wanted a Tar Heel to bring in, such as Al Wood. He wanted Al Wood badly. Jerry Krause said, no, he can't play, and he went a different direction. But there were other times when Jerry Krause overruled the basketball staff, Phil Jackson. They all wanted Johnny Dawkins out of Duke, that you'll remember. And yes, he wanted Brad Sellers. So Jerry Krause took Brad Sellers, who was a bust. So it worked both
Ohio
ways.
State,
but
if I'm not mistaken.
The point was, and the point was that in the end, Michael Jordan put Jerry Krause on the map. Everybody in Chicago and everybody around the NBA knew who Jerry Krause was just because he was the GM for Michael Jordan. So in the end, he gets remembered for pulling the plug. And here's my case that I'll make to you, Shannon. Remember, Michael took the next 3 years off, and I think they were still into prime years. Maybe he had 2 more into prime years, age 35 and 36. Remember, Tony Kukoc, who was a key cog on that team, he played 8 more years. Scottie Pippen, who was the second best player, obviously, on the team, played 6 more NBA years. You look at Dennis Rodman, who was the key piece, rebounding, below-the-rim rebounder. He psychologically blew himself up. He had all kinds of problems, off the court. But he went on to play for the Lakers and the Mavericks the next couple of years and averaged 11 rebounds for the Lakers and 14 for the Mavericks in fairly short stints. But I still think you had 2 more years of Dennis Rodman in Chicago under Phil and Michael, who could have kept him between the lines and in bounds, I think, for maybe 2 more years. And then we go down to Steve Kerr, played for 5 more years. Ron Harper played for 3 more years. And the 2 big guys, Luke Longley and Bill Winnington, played 3 and 2 years respectively. So my point is, they could have kept this together for 2. I think they could have won 2 more championships, which would have brought it to a total of 8. And I believe Michael was still playing at a peak level. He was obviously the MVP of that last finals. He made first team all defense that year in 98, led the league in scoring in 98. I think he had 2 more championship years in him, and that dynasty got blown up prematurely.
Skip, Jerry Krause, a coach once told a player, I was on the team and the coach told a player, he said, son, you're like the final piece of the puzzle. And if someone doesn't let you put that piece down, you'll mess the whole damn puzzle up. If that's what Jerry Krause did, Skip, he was a piece of the puzzle. But because they wouldn't let him be the last piece, which he deemed the most important piece, he was willing to mess the whole damn puzzle up. Why? You got something great going on. Now, Skip, look, once you have won that much, and we're talking about him, so Jerry Krause is getting what he wanted. He's getting even though it's not the adulation, we're actually talking about him. And Skip, he does deserve some credit. He drafted Scottie Pippen. He made the trade for Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr was originally with the Cavaliers, and he brought in a lot of these pieces. He traded Charles Oakley for, if I'm not mistaken, for Cartwright. So Skip, he did some good things. Okay, but you're not on the court playing. It's the players, it's the coaches, the day-to-day. You're not in meetings. You're not in practice every day. So he wanted something, Skip, that he was never going to get. And no matter how great a guy is, Skip, look, the Steelers guy, I forget his name, in 74, that he drafted his first 4 picks, all went to the Hall of Fame. Took Lynn Swann, he took Mike Webster, he took, Jack Lambert, John Stallworth, Mike Webster. Skip, nobody remembers who he was. It's all about the players. It's about Chuck Noll. That's what it's about. And Jerry Krause wasn't willing to accept that, Skip. I don't know if they could have continued, and we're going to talk about this. I don't know if they could have continued to win, but they should not have been forced to abdicate the throne. Kick their butts out of the kingdom. If you beat them, okay, it's done. Nah, we're not giving you a chance to bring it back. And okay, that was just one time. That was one time that we lost. We had been 6-0. No, you're done. Give them that, but Skip, to just break it up over pettiness and over ego, I didn't think that was right.
So do you disagree that they could have won 2 more? You don't think they could have?
Skip, Michael was 35. Scottie Pippen was 35. Pitt was 32. And remember, you said he had a back issue that was really bad. And we don't know. Skip, there's a difference between playing 8 more years and then playing 8 more years with that kind of scrutiny. There's a difference between playing 6 years and then playing 6 years with that intensity and that expectation. You know what happens. Expectations ages people. Look at President Obama had jet black hair when he took office. And then when he left, his hair was Snow White like Frederick Douglass. So, Skip, we know what expectations and the expectation of winning championships, because once you win, nothing else matters. It's not about going 70-12 and you don't win the title. The title was what they were chasing. And that's a lot to put on a man's plate. And so it's easy to say, but Skip, I'm going to say this before we get to we're going to talk about this later. Everybody thought it was a foregone conclusion. The Golden State Warriors was going to three-peat. And they were going to be, and they was going to be one of the great dynasties in modern time. And then a funny thing happened. KD's Achilles all of a sudden unraveled, and KD's knee unraveled. And we see what happens. So, Skip, that's wishful thinking. We'll never know. We've seen this before, Skip. If this guy hadn't got traded or said player had retired or went to a different team, ain't no telling how many. But, man, that injury bug is the great neutralizer, and then you never, ever know.
Well, obviously, Michael Jordan had the one injury early to his foot and stayed healthy the rest of the way. So he did not have an injury history, so I think he would have been, knock on wood, okay. But I still think, Shannon, that they had enough life and enough legs left and enough pride that they could have won a couple of more. So I'll sum this up for you by leaving you with one quick story about a clash that I had with Jerry Krause, and I had many conflicts with him because he was so out of line, but I wrote one piece that he really did not like, and I happened to bump into him as he was coming out of the restroom, and I was going into the restroom at the Coliseum in Charlotte after a playoff game. He pulled me aside and he said, "How could you write that about me? How could you do that to my family?" I said, "Jerry, I honestly, I don't care about your family. I care about this Bulls family. How could you break up this family? You're about to explode it. That's what you should care about, is the Bulls family right now." And he wouldn't, that was the last words that I spoke to Jerry Krause.
Well, see, Skip, at the end of the day, he wasn't thinking about the other people's family. Only thing he was concerned about was his own family. What about those families that was going to be broken up and going to be having to go different places? And I guess he thought that was a part of the business. Like, me doing what I do, that's a part of the business. Well, you have to understand, what you do is a part of the business also. Is that you write articles, sometimes they praise, sometimes they criticize. You got to be willing to accept the good with the bad.
No mercy. Welcome back to Undisputed. Well, according to a report, the Browns and Minnesota are in talks to send OBJ to the Vikings in exchange for a 2nd and 5th round pick next year. Shannon, in your opinion, how much would it hurt Baker Mayfield to lose Odell Beckham Jr.?
Well, I don't think it'll help him because I don't think it'll hurt him, but I don't think it helped him. Skip, look, let's be real. Baker Mayfield regressed last year. Now, I don't know if he started to smell himself, started to think he was better than he actually was, started reading his press clippings. But what we started to see, Skip, is that when someone would criticize Baker Mayfield, he always had a response. Instead of answering that with his play on the field, he felt it would be cool to tweet something or respond in an open forum. Me personally, I don't think Odell ever wanted to be there. So that has a lot to do with it, Skip. Being somewhere that you want to be. It doesn't matter, yeah, it's football. We get that. But to go from New York City, the bright lights, the Big Apple, to Cleveland, Ohio, Skip, come on now. You worked in a lot of locales. You've been in Chicago, and you worked in Dallas, and you worked in I think Florida, the Miami paper. So you've been to some big cities, and then you've had to travel and go to smaller cities. Okay. Odell is in Paris at fashion shows. Odell is travels with Drake. And all of a sudden he's like, man, I'm stuck here for 8 months in Cleveland. he didn't want to be there. I'm not saying he didn't play hard because I believe Odell did play hard. And maybe he had a nagging injury. But I believe Odell would be better served if he went somewhere else. Now, I'm not saying that, Skip, Minnesota, I like Minnesota, Jenny, so I don't want you to think I'm taking a shot at Minnesota. But I believe he would be better served in Minnesota with Zimmer and Kirk Cousins than being in Cleveland with Baker Mayfield and that new head coach. Skip, he needs a change of pace. He didn't want to go to Cleveland. He doesn't like being in Cleveland no matter what he says. He doesn't like being in Cleveland. And Baker Mayfield took a step back. He did 117 Progressive commercials or whoever he does insurance for, and that's too many. Every time someone says something that he doesn't like or criticizes him in any way, he's on Twitter or he's publicly saying something at a press conference. Go play football. The best way to shut critics up is with play on the field, not with tweets and not with little innuendos at your press conference.
Okay, I hear most of what you just said, but I'm going to take it one more step. I say that trading Odell would be the best thing that could happen to Baker Mayfield because the reason he regressed was Odell. And the reason he regressed was he loves Odell to a fault. He loves hanging with him off the field. He loves partying with Odell. He loves just being around him. They're very close friends to a fault. So Baker did everything in his power to make Odell comfortable in Cleveland, Ohio. And I'm so with you, Shannon. Odell wants to be on the cover of GQ, not on the cover of the Cleveland Plain Dealer, which is a fine newspaper. But Odell's like, me? Here? No. And I agree with you. And I said it 5 times on Undisputed through the football season. I don't know what possessed Baker to think that he should do that many different. It seemed like they made 29 different variations of that Progressive commercial. This is my house. I live at the stadium. It's too many. They were relentlessly run during football games. You couldn't turn on the TV during NFL season without seeing another version of This Is My House for Progressive Insurance, which, by the way, is based in Cleveland, Ohio. And obviously, the Progressive executives fell in love with Baker as the world did, and certainly Cleveland did during his rookie year. He only went 6-7 during his rookie year, but was it not a spectacular 6 wins that he pulled off, and they were in most of the other games? So why did he regress statistically? He went from, as a rookie, he was 27 touchdowns to 14 interceptions. Last year, he was 22 to 21. Why was that? Well, he's forcing the ball to Odell to keep him happy. So obviously they already had a go-to receiver who just 2 years before had led the NFL in catches in Jarvis Landry. Again, I know he's Odell's soulmate. I know they both played at LSU together. I know they were close friends from way back in their high school days. I get that. But there's only one football, and when you have 2 diva-like receivers, Jarvis not quite the diva that Odell is, but still huge pride and sizable ego, it's going to be almost impossible to keep them both happy. So Odell got 133 thrown to him, while Baker threw 138 balls to Jarvis, 133 to 138. Well, Odell only cashed in on 56% of his targets. That's horrible. And that was his career low. And then all the rest of his stats are career low, career low, career low. And you could be right, Shannon. Was he nicked? Did he have something going on? I don't know. He alluded to some leg injuries. I'm not sure what was going on, but he did not help the Browns. Maybe his heart wasn't in it, but he was getting the attention that he deserved. He was getting the 133 targets. He just didn't give you much bang for the bucks you were paying him. And now I look at where they're going without him. It could be great because, remember, they went out and got Austin Hooper, and he caught 75 balls last year from Matt Ryan and made his 2nd straight Pro Bowl as a tight end. And he cashed in on 77% of his targets from Matt Ryan. So, wow, That's pretty cool that you got him as a go-to security blanket tight end. And remember, Njoku broke his wrist last year, so he was only around for 4 games. So now you got 2 big-time tight ends, and they've got the 10th overall pick. And if they did pull off this trade and they had 2 second-round picks, thanks to Minnesota's 2, and then a 5 on top of that, this is the deepest draft in receivers I think we've ever seen. I'm not saying there's a stud at the top, like a game changer. There's no Julio, there's no Calvin Johnson, but there are a whole bunch of really good plug-and-play receivers who could start next year for a lot of football teams. So you're going to get somebody, and remember, they added Jack Conklin as their new right tackle. So at the 10th pick, you could pick a stud tackle that'll be a perennial Pro Bowler for 10, 12 years, and then in the second round, or you could trade up with your 2-2s to late first round, you could get your receiver to replace Odell. So I think it's going to clear the decks for Baker Mayfield. I think you'd see a huge bounce back year for Baker if, in fact, you could move Odell to Minnesota.
Skip, you could be right, because I'm looking at these numbers. Baker to Odell ranked last in completion percentage, passer rating among quarterback wide receiver duos with at least 100 targets. So in other words, Skip, look, if you're open, let me throw you the ball. And there are going to be certain situations, Skip. Now, I can't start the game by forcing the ball to you, because that's going to get me out of rhythm. And see, the thing is with Baker is that he saw when Odell didn't get the ball early, and like this is like with most receivers, this is why a lot of teams would double TO and get him out of the game, get him frustrated, and then they could go about their business. Baker saw that when Odell gets frustrated, you're probably going to lose him. So let me try to do everything I possibly can to get him the ball early. Well, in the process of forcing the ball and not getting it, you exacerbate a situation because you get yourself out of a rhythm. And then Odell, Skip, look, I don't care. He might have not wanted to be there, but he wanted to show the Giants, this is what you gave up on. And so he started to press. He started to want to be the Odell of his first couple of years when he was 100%. Well, he's missed the first 4 games, if I'm not mistaken, Skip, of his rookie year with a hamstring injury. But then he came on like gangbusters the next 2 to 3 years. He wanted to show the Giants he was still that, and he started to press. You put him in Minnesota because I do believe, and I think you believe, that Cousins right now is a better quarterback than Baker Mayfield. We can debate this down the road 2-3 years from now and see. But you pair Odell with Thielen, with Dalvin Cook in that backfield. So now, if you try to play coverage, Dalvin Cook is going to, you try to play coverage, Dalvin Cook's going to run the ball down your throat. Well, you come up and try to stack that guy in the box. Now you leave Thielen and Odell one-on-one. And plus, Odell on that synthetic turf indoors? I love it. Plus, Skip, there will be any receiver that you want at that 10 spot. You want Judy, you want CeeDee Lamb, they will be there at 10. Because now you got a first grade, your pick, plus you got 2-2, you'd have 2-2s. Yeah, Skip, I would do this deal. Odell is on a reasonable contract next 4 years at $15 million a year, which is going to be, chicken feed moving. Well, we say chicken feed, but it's going to be small compared to what receivers are going to get moving forward. We saw Amari Cooper's already at 20. We see Mike Thomas is at 20. Julio's at 20. So $15 million for a guy at Odell's caliber. He's 100%. He'll be focused because, Skip, it's not going to look okay. We blame the Giants. Well, Eli is a shell of himself. So Eli can't get the ball. We blamed it on Baker. Baker doing too many commercials. Baker regressed. Now, how many different places Odell going to get to go, and we keep blaming the quarterback? At some point in time now, every place we go, it stinks. It smells like a baby went to the bathroom in here. Now, we done 3 places. It'll be 3 places, Skip. 8 diapers everywhere. It might be you.
It might be. Shannon, what I always respected the most about you and your career was you were a great player. You're in the Hall of Fame, but you were also a great leader. So you weren't really a me guy. You were a we guy. No. You were one of the ultimate we guys as a team leader, somebody who could galvanize a locker room in both Denver and Baltimore. Why do I always make the case that I think Michael Irvin was the greatest receiver ever? Because of leadership intangibles. I was there through those dynastic years in the 90s with the Dallas Cowboys. and Emmett was great, and Troy was great, but Michael was the leader of the team. And it's rare that you find the wide receiver who can be a diva wide receiver who's actually the leader of the team. And I always said that the playmaker, as they called Michael Irvin, number 88, he's the guy I wanted in my foxhole in December in New York or in Philadelphia or in Washington in the big NFC East battles, because he was the go-to guy. He was the one who dug them out of holes with big 3rd and 8 catches. And he was the guy who went to the sidelines and rallied the troops. He was the guy on a Wednesday before a big game who rallied the whole locker room just the way you did and the way Ray Lewis did in Baltimore. Well, I just gave you the complete flip side, the 180 from Odell. Odell is me. Odell is a solo act. Odell talks about wanting to win, but he doesn't act like he wants to win. So he wants to star, obviously. He wants the numbers. He wants you to throw him the rock 10 or 12 times a game, and he wants to say, I got 120 today. But he doesn't really care about the outcome of the game, which is why he's overvalued. He's overhyped. He's overpaid to me, because you're not going to get enough value for what he's going to bring you as a veteran leader of your football team. He's just not worth it.
Skip, when you look at one of the clips that I'm known for, when I'm on the sideline calling the National Guard, we played the Patriots in Foxborough, Skip only had like 2 or 3 catches, but we won the game going away. What Odell doesn't understand, Skip, this is why, and I believe, look, we talked about this, I think it was on Monday, about how the Giants left him off of the all-time great receivers. Skip, I got my timeline flooded. They're like, well, Odell didn't win a Super Bowl. Knicks and Cruz, Manningham won Super Bowls. So the fans looking at it like, yeah, Odell, you great, but you ain't win nothing. That's what Odell has to understand. In order for you to have historically greatness, is that you got to win. And what? Even if you don't, Skip, even if you don't win the Super Bowl, get your team there. Play well. People look at Julio, even though they didn't win. They look at the catches that he made, especially on that 22-yarder, Skip. Like, how in the heck did he make that catch? They look at T.O. on one leg. They're like, but Odell is like, he doesn't get it. Odell, you have to understand. There are going to be times you're going to catch 10 for $150 and 2 touchdowns, and there are going to be times that you have 5 for 55. But your value has to be more than just catching passes and yards. You got to get down in the blocking game. But if you win, the praise and the adulation that you seek will come. But that catch ruined it. Odell saw, they lost that game. People don't, Skip, you know because you're Cowboy fans. I know because I watched. They lost the game in which Odell had the catch. But what he saw is that the praise in how in social media and how everybody blew that up. He was like, well, damn. I don't really need to win the game. I just make a few plays like this and everything's going to be okay. So he says, I can have Odell success without having team success. And bam, and there you go. That's the worst thing can happen. If you let a guy have success without having team success, what's what I need team success for? If I can go out there and get a $5 million shoe contract, if I can be on Rolling Stone, if I can be on GQ, if I can do this, travel with Drake, go to fashion shows. Why I need to win a Super Bowl when I can get all this without it?
True. So to sum this up, Shannon, remember the Browns announced yesterday they're going to their championship era uniform. Seems like everybody's resorting to that these days, but they're going back to those uniforms that I used to love in the days that Jim Brown carried the mail for the Cleveland Browns. They won the championship in '64 before there even was a Super Bowl. And Kevin Stefanski's come in as the new coach. They got new coordinators. They got Alex Van Pelt to coordinate the offense. And he was, as you remember, Aaron Rodgers' coordinator for a while in Green Bay. And I have a lot of respect for Alex. And I think it's going to be a very fresh start for the Browns. Myles Garrett will come back at some point. And I think they could be pretty to very good if they clear the decks and send Odell packing maybe to Minnesota.
Yeah.
Not so sure how I feel about OBJ to Minnesota. I don't know if I like it, so I'm changing the subject.
No mercy.
Welcome back to Undisputed. Tua Tagovailoa's injury history has reportedly created persistent talk of a draft day slide. According to Pro Football Talk, the inability for teams to have their own doctors examine Tua has added to the concern. So, Shannon, in your opinion, how high would you draft Tua?
Number one, I believe he's the best player in this draft. His body of work, his complete body of work. I'm not talking about 1 year. I'm not talking about a good stretch of games. I'm talking about his body of work is impeccable. And I would take him that high. Now, Miami is probably I don't, Skip. First of all, I believe this is red herring. We get this every year, Skip. We get this report that this guy's sliding down and that guy might be sliding. But I believe if he's there at 5, the Miami Dolphins will take him. That's what I do believe. But I love what he brings to the table. His ability to throw the football with accuracy is the number one thing that I look for in a quarterback, not arm strength, because some of the great quarterbacks didn't have the strongest arm. You look at Tom, you look at Peyton, you look at Joe Montana. They did not have cannons. Yes, you like the guy to have elusivity like a Lamar Jackson or Michael Vick. You like the guy to be able to have touch like Drew Brees. You like the guy to have a cannon like John Elway or Patrick Mahomes. But you're not going to get a guy with all that and plus be 6'4". That's not going to happen. But what he has is the ability to anticipate, throw into tight windows, throw guys open that's second to none of anybody in this draft. Joe Burrow had a historic 2019, but in 2016, it was not historic. Now, I need to know why. So with that body of work that I've seen from Tua and this playing in the SEC and doing what he's done over a 2.5-year span, I've seen enough. Tua is the real deal, and somebody's going to be making a big mistake if they don't select this young man. Now, Skip, Detroit's up there. They don't need the Giants. They don't need a quarterback. They have a quarterback. But if the Dolphins pass on him at 5, and it seems that the Bengals are hell-bent on taking Joe Burrow, I got no problem with that, Skip, an Ohio kid. But Tua, if the Miami Dolphins pass on this kid at 5 and take Justin Herbert, what I'm starting to hear that groundswell, they're going to be very, very disappointed.
Shannon, I keep trying to tell you, it's not body of work. It's just his body, period. And I'm going to knock on wood for the young man before I launch again into this. I would have little to no faith if I took him anywhere in the first round that he could stay healthy as a pro football player. You have always told me, hurt in college, hurt in the pros. He wasn't just hurt once or twice. He was repeatedly hurt in college, playing behind what might have been consistently the best offensive line in college football, one that's loaded with top picks. And yet, if I look at the injury history, it's horrifying, and it would be doubly horrifying if, because of our situation that we're in right now as a country, that my team doctor couldn't have a hands-on exam of Tua. And you're a little bit guessing on exactly how fit he is, exactly how much he's recovered from many injuries, because I'm going to cite this again. Rex Ryan on ESPN reported that he was told Tua had 5 surgeries while he was at Alabama. And we know about broken nose and concussion and broken index finger on his throwing hand and pulled quad and hurt knee, and it may have required some kind of a knee scope. Not sure about that one. And then 2 ankle surgeries on both ankles, that tightrope surgery that can be a little dicey. And then finally, hip surgery that was thought to be career-threatening. It's just too many. For me, on top of the fact I'm not nearly as sold on him as a player as you are, and maybe the one reason I'm not as sold, Shannon, is because I think the injuries as they mounted contributed to what I thought were happy feet in some big games. I thought he got antsy and flinchy in the pocket because he was not able to withstand the punishment he was taking. And certainly he's got quick feet. He has some escapability and that sort of ballet feet, and he can get away, but he didn't have a knack for avoiding hits outside the pocket. And when they started to collapse on him inside the pocket, he began to throw it a little too quickly, and he began to throw it a little off target. Georgia got after him in that 2018 SEC championship game, and he went 10 of 25 for 164 yards with 2 picks and a QBR of 29 on a scale 0 to 100. And then he turned right around. Remember, Jalen Hurts saved him in that game when he got yanked, and Jalen Hurts outscored Georgia by himself 14-0 in the fourth quarter. So they got to go to the championship game ultimately, and he threw 2 more interceptions, did Tua with a QBR of 59 in that game. And then against Alabama this past year, against LSU at Tuscaloosa, he went 21 of 40. So it's not exactly a high percentage. I thought he missed a lot of throws, and he's throwing to 4 receivers who are all possible first-round picks. We know 2 of them will be. Devontae Smith surely will be a first-round pick. Jalen Waddle could be a first-round pick. And Najee Harris is coming out of the backfield with high catchability and is going to be a draft choice. So, man, I don't know, Shannon. Are you sure about the performance? I'm not even sure about that. But when you pile on the injury concerns, I'm like, I just don't know if I'd risk a first-round pick on him. Maybe a later first-round pick, I would take a flyer, but it's feeling like he's a candidate, as great a kid as he is, to be that guy stuck in the green room for a long time on Thursday night.
Skip, I think the thing is that I believe it's Miami that's putting this out there. They want to leverage somebody if you want to come up, because we're going to take Tua here. If you want something, if you want to come deal in this spot, we're going to do it. Skip, here's the thing. Yes, he's had surgeries, but I believe those surgeries, he had an ankle injury. Now, if we just let the ankle injury heal, now, college season is not like the pro season, Skip. You got 16 games. Well, pro season is 16 games. If you make the playoffs, you move on. Everybody knows that. But a college season is about 12 games. Well, you get hurt, you miss 4 games, Skip. So they tried to speed the process up of him healing that ankle, so they did that. I believe in the process, you compensate, because I believe everything else came off those ankle injuries. He started messing with that knee because of the ankle. He hurt that quad because of the ankle. Now, I can't have definitive proof but the hips, but Skip, I believe, and he had another tightrope surgery. So I believe every injury outside of the broken finger and the broken nose, everything that was from lower body down came off those ankle injuries. If they would have allowed him proper time to heal, I don't believe they'd have had this problem. But anybody that watched tape think that Justin Herbert is a better quarterback than Tua is sadly mistaken. I mean, he's in the Pac-12, and he won the Rose Bowl, Skip, with his legs, not with his arms. Tua has been doing this against elite defenses. Everybody keeps saying, well, Tua saved Jalen Hurts saved Tua in the SEC championship game. What about Tua coming off the bench in the national championship game and saving Jalen Hurts? Are we not going to talk about that? Joe Burrow had the highest single-season efficiency rating in NCAA history, 202. Tua has the highest career at 199. His career is only 3 percentage points lower than Joe Burrow, who had the greatest one in history. Tua is 3 points lower over a career. So if you take 2018 into account and see what that his percentage and his QBR is, Skip, as great a season as he has, they had the same amount of touchdowns in 2 years, but Tua had fewer interceptions. Let that sink in for just a second. The historically great season that Joe Burrow had, Tua had the same amount of touchdowns with fewer interceptions, and he missed games. Imagine if he didn't miss no games, what it would have been, Skip Bayless. You're going to make a mistake, Miami. You made one mistake, passing on a guy that you thought was hurt, and Drew Brees, and you took another guy in Dante Culpepper. How'd that work out for you? Saints said thank you. Somebody's going to say thank you again if you pass on Tua.
Let this sink in. Tua is 6 feet tall. Joe Burrow is 6 feet 4 inches tall. Joe Burrow can really take off and run with the football when need be. He can gash defenses and torment pass defenses by taking off and running for first downs at 6'4". He has no injury history. He did get hurt at Ohio State back in his former life, if you will, but at LSU, he did not get hurt. So now I'm with you on this. Justin Herbert, I told you on Undisputed during the year, I watched him 4 or 5 times. No. I've done this on many quarterbacks before. If you watch them in college and they don't show you poise and presence and body language and feel for the game, they're not going to work in pro football. And I don't like his confidence. I don't like just his feel for the passing game, his touch, his accuracy. It's not there. He can wow you occasionally because he's a big, extraordinary athlete, great golfer on top of being a fine thrower of the football with a big arm. But I'm with you, Shannon. No. But yet, if I'm looking at Tua, if I'm an NFL team, I'm only looking at him if I have a second first-round pick and he falls to me. And that would be like if the Raiders pick somebody at 12 and then at 19 they have their second first-round pick. If you want to take Tua there, I'm okay with that. If Jacksonville's got 9 and 20 and you want to take him at 20, I'm okay with that. If the Dolphins passed him at 5, but he was there again at 18 or certainly at 26, yeah, I'll take Tua there. If the Patriots, if he fell to the Patriots at 23, I got you. You'd take him and try that as a developmental project. But I'm just saying the injury history is not going to go away. What's that?
You say developmental. There's nothing that needs to be developed on this kid. His ability to throw the football is pure. He's for real. He's legit throwing the football, Skip. There's nothing developmental about him.
I'm talking about developmental as in make sure he heals completely up from all his injuries for a year or two as he learns the pro game. If Green Bay could have him as the next Aaron Rodgers for the next 2 years, maybe if you let his body completely heal over 2 years, then you'd have Aaron Rodgers following Brett Favre. I'm going to be on record. Anybody who takes him up there at 5'4", good luck to you.
Skip, that's why Miami is in prime position. They got Ryan Fitzpatrick, so you get to take Tua at 5. Ryan Fitzpatrick plays, he's the bridge. Ryan Fitzpatrick hands off to Tua next year. That's perfect. That's why you take it. Miami's in prime position. You have someone to take him. Joe Burrow's going to have to play right away in Cincinnati. This is the perfect landing spot for Tua.
Okay. Last question. I want you on record. Do you believe Tua will be a durable quarterback for the next 12, 15 years in pro football?
Skip, if he can give you 10 years, be happy. 10 years in a ball, you good.
No mercy. According to reports, the NFL will not make a decision about the potential reinstatement of D lineman Eldon Smith and Randy Gregory before the draft, which makes things interesting for the Cowboys. So, Shannon, with that in mind, should the Cowboys take the best edge rusher at number 17 just in case?
No. I would take the best cornerback available at 17. Skip, they lost Byron Jones. They only had 7 interceptions last year as a team. And tied for fewest, and you bring back Anthony Brown and Awuzie at the 2 starting cornerback spots. Skip. You need a corner. And hell, you're paying DeMarcus Lawrence $20 million. What the hell you paying him for? Come on, Skip. You just signed Gerald McCoy. And if the corner's gone, because we believe Okudah will be gone a lot earlier than that. But I hear they like this kid, C.J. Henderson out of Florida. And I think there's another guy, I can't recall his name off the top of my head, Skip. You take that corner. You need someone on the back end. That was been the weak link for the Cowboy for the longest period of time. And if all those guys are gone, if there's a receiver there, CeeDee Lamb, Jerry Jeudy, you take him. Skip, you don't reach for a rusher if you need a corner. Take the corner and then worry about an edge rusher in round 2.
I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to wish the worst on my Cowboys. You want them to pick a bust at number 17 so that you can gloat next year, right? Just for the record. Just to disqualify your opinion. Do you not need a cornerback? Yes or no? Do you not need a corner? Yes or no? even worse, we need an edge rusher, because to me, I value the edge rusher above the cornerback, because obviously they work hand in hand. But if you can't get to the quarterback, the cornerback often doesn't matter, because obviously if you have too much time to throw, the best cornerback in the draft, C.J. Henderson, or as you said, Jeff Okudah, that they're going to have no chance covering a receiver for 7 seconds. So to me, Robert Quinn predictably took the money and ran to Chicago. I don't blame him a bit for that. But he was my best edge rusher, my best defensive end last year. DeMarcus Lawrence didn't remotely, as we know, live up to a $100 million contract last year. Did he have a shoulder issue that troubled him and slowed him down? Yes, he did. Can he be way better than he was? Yes, he has to be. So it's also troubling to me, Shannon, that they couldn't get a ruling quick enough on Aldon Smith and or Randy Gregory to know if they're vulnerable at the other edge rusher. It's critical to this defense to have somebody else who can get to the passer. And again, maybe Commissioner Goodell would give Jerry Jones kind of a little wink, heads up. Yeah, I'm going to reinstate him. I just don't have time to do the paperwork right now, because obviously Commissioner Goodell has way more serious issues than reinstating Aldon Smith and Randy Gregory on his plate right now. We know that. But do you really think he'd give Jerry Jones a heads up before the draft that they will get reinstated? Jerry has been an adversary of Commissioner Goodell, so I don't know that Roger's going to do Jerry any pre-draft favor here. So I'm saying you're hanging out to dry here, that you're highly vulnerable. If, in fact, one player, I'm going to hit you with one huge name here. If one player falls to 17, which is highly possible, you have to take this edge rusher. He just might be the best edge rusher in the draft. To my eye, just watching television, I thought that K'Lavon Chaisson at LSU leaped off my screen even more than I saw Chase Young leaping off my screen for the Ohio State. And obviously, Chase Young is just the runaway second pick in the draft, and we get that. And yet, I think we both have said, gee, there in some of the big games, it looked like he just got engulfed, that his quickness just got overtaken by massive left tackles. So what I saw from Chaisson when I watched LSU in big games, he was unblockable. And so then I read that earlier this week, the Cowboys did interview Chaisson. So that's number one. And then number two, last night, I always like to read the capsules on NFL.com post-combine from Lance Zierlein, who does an excellent job of breaking down the combine prospects. And when he wrote about Chaisson, guess who he compared him to? And this is before we knew anything. He compared him to Aldon Smith. He said he's the next possible Aldon Smith, that he can be a game-changing pass rusher. He's 6'3", 254, so he's in that mid-range of where he's more athlete than physicality. But every time I watched number 18 for LSU, he leaped off my screen. And by the way, they gave him number 18 because they consider that the leadership number on the LSU defense. And he was that. He led them in rushing the passer and as the leader on the field. So I love the intangibles. I love the tangibles. And again, Mel Kiper's got him going one pick earlier to Atlanta at 16. But if he falls to 17, Mel Kiper's got him falling well past that to Seattle at 28. And yet both acknowledge that he's the second best pass rusher in the draft, edge rusher. Man, I'm taking Chaisson right there. Bingo. Thank you very much. I don't care what your needs are at cornerback. You can figure that out. That TCU kid, Gladney, might be there in the second round. That's who Mel has them taken in the second round. So, Shannon, if he's there, I'll take Chaisson over Chase, I think, in the long term. He just looks, to my eye, like he might be the better long-term game changer.
Skip, I'm looking at it, and Mel Kiper has them taking the safety out of Alabama, Xavier McKinney. Skip, I think they need secondary help more than they need an edge rusher. DeMarcus Lawrence, and you believe that he had a shoulder injury, he was nicked. Okay, so he should be 100%. Now, you signed Gerald McCoy. Now, it looks like to me that Mike Nolan I know he likes to base out of a 3-4. And it seems to be that's the direction that they're heading is in a 3-4. So with that, Skip, I still believe, C.J. Henderson is the second best rated corner. They got Terrell out of Clemson. They got Tavon Diggs out of Alabama. Skip, and now I'm not saying it seems to be Okudah is the runaway number one corner. I think on everybody's draft board, he's the best corner out there. And clearly, he's going to be gone when the Cowboys pick at 17. But, Skip, you need secondary help. That was pathetic last year. In 16 games, you only had 7 picks. Really? So, for me, you need a corner.
Okay,
if Xavier McKinney is there, you got to take a secondary guy, Skip. A safety or a corner, you need that.
Okay, so the Hall of Famer Shannon Sharpe is telling me he values corners above edge rushers.
No, Skip. But here's the thing. The question is, do you have the corner rated higher than the edge rusher? Because, okay, you need both. Okay, let's just say for the sake of argument, Skip, we need both. But the corner is rated higher on our draft board than the edge rusher. Then what do? You need both. But one is rated higher than the other.
All right. I watched C.J. Henderson a lot play for the University of Florida last year, and he's really good. He is clearly the second best corner in this draft. In my eye test off television, I would say Chason would be higher on my draft board than even C.J. Henderson would be, and I'm pretty sure C.J. will be gone by the time the Cowboys pick at 17. There's some reason that teams aren't as sold on Chason, and I don't know why. He did not run at the combine. I think he had a hamstring or something. There was something going on with it. There's some reason that there's some skepticism that I don't get. I think he's going to be the steal of the draft. So on my draft board at 17, he would be higher than C.J. Henderson. But I get what obviously you need a corner, but what did I keep telling you about Byron Jones? He would make a Pro Bowl and not intercept a pass. I can count on one hand the times he even got his hands on balls. He intercepted 2 passes in 5 years. He just has no ball instincts. So I think he was very overrated, and I think the Dolphins dramatically overpaid to get him. He can definitely cover. He's freakishly athletic. I give you that. And he's a big, strong corner. But he has no ball hawk skills. And so, to me, Anthony Brown's pretty good. Jordan Lewis is pretty good. You might be able to get away with him. And I told you, if you get the Gladney kid in the second round, he probably would start for you. So, again, Chason is my pick at 17 if he's there. And I think people are laying in the weeds to take him earlier, but we'll see about that.
Skip, let me tell you why people are not so sure on Clavon Chason. Is Bartavius Mingo. You remember that linebacker that came out of LSU and everybody like, oh my God, they was ranting and raving. I think he went 6th overall to Cleveland. And then he went to New England. And then he went to Seattle. And so I don't know where he is now. Yep. And I think that kind of scared because he could have kind of like the same body type as this kid here. And it is kind of scaring people off. They're like, well, we thought we had a can't miss in Bartavius Mingo. And lo and behold, we missed bad. The question is, Skip, if 17, if C.J. Henderson and the Chason kid is there, you would rather them take the edge rusher as opposed to the corner. Because you do know, Skip, let's just say for the sake of argument, they'll hold up for just that bead longer. You're in trouble. You're in trouble.
Okay, it's a good point you make about Mingo. That was a long time ago, and obviously that doesn't mean that Chason is going to be a bust. And Mingo wasn't a bust. He just couldn't live up to the 6th overall pick. But I felt like he was more of a pure linebacker. while Chason is a pass rusher who can also drop and cover. I saw him drop and cover 2 or 3 times where I was like, wow, he can move, he can run. So, again, I think he's going to be way better than Mingo was.
No mercy. All right, guys, ESPN did a ranking of the greatest NBA dynasties. And you know who they put at number 1? Bill Russell's Celtics and their 11 championships. In second place, Michael Jordan and his Chicago Bulls. And in third place, Magic's Lakers. So, Shannon, how would you rank them?
I would rank the Celtics first. And I get it, Skip. A lot of times when we look at the Celtics, those great teams, we look at there were only 8 teams in the league at that time. But it's hard to argue 11 championships in 12 seasons. And the length of the dynasty is what's impressive. And if you look at the 1963 team, it had 9 Hall of Famers of 12 players. Second, Skip, is where I'm going to surprise you. I got the Lakers and Magic because that dynasty went basically from 1980 until 1991. 9 finals in 12 seasons. And Skip, when I talk to people and we're debating, we're having barbershop talk, I say, well, when Jordan beat the Lakers, Magic was old, and it's like Magic was only like 31, 32. I said there's a difference between a guy that's 31, 32 that's gone to 9 finals in 12 years as opposed to a guy that has missed the playoffs 8 of the last 10 years. I said you look at what Magic and them had to do. And Skip, if you remember, Skip, I think if I'm not mistaken, they played the Celtics in 84, 85, and again in 87. And we know what the Celtics represented. And they also had to fight through the bad boy Pistons. We know what they represented. And they also had to play in the early 80s, the Sixers with Dr. J and those teams. And we know what they represented. So, Skip, for me, I'm going to put the Lakers at 2. I'm going to put the Bulls at 3. Because they had a shorter reign. I understand they were undefeated in their reign. But for me, Skip, I think the Lakers and the road that they had to go was much tougher. And it was longer. So I got Celtics 1, Lakers 2, Bulls 3. But you noticed on that list, Skip, also on that list were the Warriors and the Spurs. And that was old dynasty that little LeBron had to go through. So I'm trying to see, But go ahead. I'm going to let you follow that up, but you see what's on that list.
Ho-hum. Another day on Undisputed and more Jordan hate from my partner, Shannon Sharpe. It's okay. I get it. But I'm about to crush it because let's start with Bill Russell's Boston Celtics. I'm sorry, Shannon. It was an all-time great run. I certainly can't argue that. But when you win your first 9 of those rings against an NBA that had fewer than 10 teams, I got reservations. There were 8 teams for a while, then there were 9 teams for a while as they won their first 9 rings. And thanks to the great Red Auerbach, they had a corner on the market. They had an embarrassment of riches, as you just pointed out, of talent. That they had everybody. Thanks to Red, I want him, I got him, I want him. And they were just too good because their cupboard was more stocked than any other cupboard by far. So I don't know. It's hard for me to give in to that. I give it's the longest run with the most success. 11 championships in 12 tries. I got it. But now let's get back to more current, more modern era. Let's get back to Showtime versus Jordan's Bulls. And for me, Shannon, it ain't even close because as spectacular as Showtime was, as fun to watch as Showtime was, more fun to watch than Jordan's Bulls because they were more defensive mindset based. Even though Jordan was a spectacular scorer, he was also an even more spectacular defender. But when I look at Showtime, it was spectacular peaks and too many valleys. You did not mention all the valleys because in their 11-year run, they had 6 disappointing playoff finishes. And let us count the ways quickly if we can. After Magic stepped in at center in 1980 in his rookie year for Kareem, and they pulled off the Game 6 win and won the championship in Philly. Okay, that's the first one. But then in 81, they lost to the Rockets in a best of 3 in the first round of the playoffs. Okay, that's not great. Then in 83, they got swept by the Sixers in the finals. That's not too pretty. And then in 86, they lost to the Rockets in 5 games in a 7-game series in the Western Conference Finals. And then in 89, they got swept in the finals by the Pistons. That was the time when, obviously, Game 1, Magic and Byron Scott pulled their hamstrings. Magic was somewhat available the rest of the way. Byron was not. They still had Worthy and Perkins and Kareem, but they got swept ingloriously. And then in 1990, they lost to the Suns in the second round of the playoffs in 5. And then, of course, without Kareem in 91, they lost in 5 to Jordan's Bulls. And you can argue it wasn't a fair fight, but they did win Game 1 in Chicago and turned around and lost 4 straight games decisively as Jordan's Bulls arrived and said, watch this, here we go. So again, I just gave you 6 glitches, which disqualify Showtime, because once Jordan broke through in 91, the only glitches were he had a forced sabbatical. Some people thought it was because of his gambling. Others thought he just wanted to go play baseball. I think the former. I think he was forced to take the sabbatical. And then we talked about, to open the show, he was forced into early retirement at age 35 by Jerry Krause, who wanted to blow up the Bulls because he hated Phil Jackson, who despised Jerry Krause. So again, I think that run for Jordan's Bulls, if you take away the sabbatical and you take away the premature retirement, I think they could have won 10 straight championships and would have won 10 straight championships.
No, Skip. Skip. They listed the Bulls dynasty starting in 1989. So 89, they didn't win the finals. They didn't even make it. In 90, they didn't make it. So no. We're not talking about no 91. We're talking about 89. They listed the dynasty at the time that it started and when it ended. That's what they listed it as. They got from 1989 until 1998. Oh, I'm not going to let you start this at 91. Now, hold on. We talk about Magic. They went out. They lost to the Big Three Celtics. The Big Three Celtics. You remember when Magic got swept in 83 by the Sixers, Moses Malone was the regular season MVP. Moses Malone, for people that don't know, is a 3-time regular season MVP. He was also finals MVP. The year that they lost in 81, Moses Malone was on that team in Houston that beat the Lakers. So Moses Malone was not a slouch. They played the Sixers. The Lakers played the Sixers 3 times in the early 80s. They were 2-1 in the finals. And then, flip that back, Skip. Think about this. It was a revolving door, the Bulls. They would play Seattle. They would play Utah. They would play Phoenix. They would play Portland. The Lakers, they either got the Sixers or the Celtics for the first half of that decade. That was it. There was no revolving door. That was it. Think about it. You had to beat the Celtics to first of all, you would either have to beat the Sixers or the Celtics even to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. That's what you're going to have to do. And then the bad boy Pistons came onto the scene. Skip, stop this. The bad boy Pistons kept the Lakers, kept the Celtics, not the Celtics, excuse me, the Bulls smacking them. Whack up, swack it, Michael, whack up, Scotty, whack up. So let's not talk about no 91. This thing started in 89. And if I'm not mistaken, didn't Michael Jordan, Orlando, can you tell the people what happened in the second round when Nick Anderson stole the ball and they beat the brakes off the Bulls? Did that not happen? I just need to know, did it happen? Yes, it did. Yes, it did. So for me, when I look at the Lakers and what they had to go through, hold on, Orlando didn't beat the Bulls in the second round in 95? With Shaq, Penny, Nick Anderson, Dennis Scott? Are you sure?
Michael took off most of that year and came back late for the playoff run and was not in any shape. He was not ready to make a deep run in the playoffs. He had been playing baseball. He'd been gone for almost 2 full seasons when he came back. No, we'll start it.
No, Skip, I ain't gonna do that. Hold on, first of all, how's that my fault? Now look here, I ordered some from Grubhub. Now they charged me, I ordered me some lemon pepper wing for Wingstop. I ordered that from Grubhub. They messed up my order. They didn't give me all my wings I ordered. But they charged me for it. How's that my fault that the driver didn't get that or y'all didn't give it to the driver? Y'all need to take that last 15 wing piece off my bill to show that. How is that my fault that Michael Jordan took off? Did he play? I just need to know. Was he on the team that lost to the Orlando Magic in the second round? A simple no or a simple yes will suffice. I don't care about what he did before then. Was he on the court? You didn't say nothing about that when he dropped that double nickel on the Knicks. You didn't mention that he took off half the season. You told, Michael Jordan dropped 55. Okay, I need that same energy. I need that same energy, that same passion that you had with your chest out when Nick Anderson, Shaq, and Penny blew him off the court.
I did not mention the double nickel game. I didn't mention that whole year because he was forced out of basketball. I'm sorry, it didn't count to me. Anybody who saw Jordan on the court against Orlando had a hard time recognizing him because he'd been out of basketball for so long. But next year, when he got his training camp and he got his legs underneath him, you know and I know what started to happen again, another three-peat. So you're the one who made all the excuses for all those valleys that Showtime suffered through their run. And all I know is their run started when Magic won his first championship. And so I'm going to start Jordan's run when he finally broke through in 91 to win his first championship. That's when the dynasty started, and it should have won 10 straight championships.
No, Skip, baby. No, that's not when the dynasty. That's not when the dynasty started. They list the dynasty as 1989. That's when they say Michael Jordan dynasty started. That's what they say. But the Lakers are having to beat teams that are dynasty. The big Celtics was a dynasty that's on this list. That's what the Lakers had to go through. The bad boy Pistons are on this list. Skip, this was not the team that Michael beat with the Lakers. Skip, Byron Scott didn't play. Magic was on his last legs. Big Game James Worthy was also on fumes. Kareem had gone. Skip, this was not the same team. And now, prime. You talking about mid-'80s Lakers against the 96 or the 98 Bulls, Kareem or Scott hook them out the building. You know that, I know that. So...
I don't know that.
You do know that. They had Skip. First of all, Weddington, Cartwright, Purdue, never. Even Kareem at 40, they couldn't do anything with it. You do realize Kareem was Finals MVP in 1985. How old was Kareem? 36, 37, maybe even 38. Skip, you need to, Skip, I love Skip. You make it seem like, you see, I see what you're trying to do. See, and I keep telling you, it's the same thing with players. Because you were so close to the Bulls, you covered them. You done got, and the thing that you get on me about getting all buddy with the players, it clouds your judgment. See, you done got buddy with old Mike and Phil Jackson. Now they become untouchable. The very thing that you told me to avoid when I got into this business is that you do. You got close to Mike, and now it's clouded your judgment.
No, it hasn't. It's made you even smarter about how great he was. You know it, and I know it. And Shannon, if we go back to that 89 finals, Magic did pull his hamstring and Byron his hamstring in game 1. Magic tried to play for the next 3 games. Byron didn't. But your man Kareem was there, and he was still at the backside of his prime, and he averaged 13 points and 5 rebounds, and they got swept. He was there. Worthy was there. I don't know. Where was your man Kareem? Couldn't he level the court?
That man was 39. Kareem was probably 40 years of age. And you talking about on the backside of his prime. So I love how you say Kareem was on the backside of his prime, but when Michael went to Washington, he was way past his prime. If I'm not mistaken.
He was.
No. Oh, yeah, I do care. No. I'm not going to let you do that. Michael Jordan was 38 in Washington. Kareem was 40. And you're going to talk about Kareem was on the backside of his prime, but Michael was way past his prime 2 years younger. No, Skip, don't do that. You know what the Lakers and the Celtics, those clashes, you're talking about maybe two top 5 dynasties of all time going at it. Because I think, if I'm not mistaken, Skip, 7 or 8 of the finals, with the exception, think about it, with the exception of the Lakers, the exception of the Rockets in 81 and 86, the Lakers was in the finals every year. Let that sink in for a second. In the decade of the 80s, other than the Rockets in 81 and 86, it was the Lakers. And then, what was that, 90, if I'm not mistaken? No, go ahead.
Okay, I need to ask, where was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the unstoppable skyhooker that he was? Where was he in 81 when they lost in the first round of the playoffs to the Rockets, and in 83 when they got swept in the finals, and in 86 when they lost to the Rockets again in 5 in the conference finals in a 7-game series? Where was he then? He's definitely in his prime then. Wasn't he unstoppable? Shouldn't Showtime have closed those deals? Jordan's teams would have closed those deals.
Yes. Yeah. Great point. Tell me the guy that's on the Bulls, Weddington, Cartwright, or Purdue, that's better than Moses Malone or Akeem Olajuwon. Because that's who he lost to. Moses Malone and Akeem Olajuwon. 2 top 50 players. And your centers are not top 100 players. So that's who he lost to. So stop doing that, Skip Bayless. You got to, Skip, I remember all this so vividly. That's why I get to paint this picture. Because a lot of people that the Lakers, what they had to get through is that not only getting through, look, I understand the West, you had the Rockets, and that was really it. But once you got to the finals, Skip, you had to beat the Celtics. That's what you had to get through. Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish, Dennis Johnson. 4 top 50 players. That's what you had to get through. You remember, Skip, Dennis Johnson was a finals MVP ever before he set foot. He was an all-time great. At the time, he was considered the best defensive guard in the history of the game, prior to Michael Jordan. You know that. I know that. And then you got Larry Bird. Do I need to say anything about old Bird, old Larry Joe? And then you got Kevin McHale, fundamental. You talk about Tim Duncan being fundamentally sound. McHale was that 15 years earlier. And then the Chief, all he did was just play hard, rebound. He wasn't much of a scorer, but you know what you was going to get from the Chief on a nightly basis. And then one year they had Nate Archibald. And then the next year they had Bill Walton coming off the bench. Skip, you need to stop this. You really need to stop this, Skip Bayless. You know what the Lakers represented, and you know what the Celtics represented. And we're going to talk about this a little later. Old Goat James had to go through 2 great dynasties. And you want to talk... We're going to talk about old Goat James, Shannon, and what he did and what teams had to do to take him down. What?
He doesn't belong in this conversation, because that would be blasphemy to put him in a conversation with Michael Jeffrey Jordan. But I'm here to tell you, I saw it firsthand. Those Bulls teams were the greatest defensive teams in the history of the NBA, and they would have shut down Showtime. Showtime wouldn't have got outrunning, and they would have had a hard time rebounding against this crew, because even with Luke Longley at 7 feet 2 inches tall, clogging the lane, and Winnington, they had enough size, height, strength, and just supreme nastiness. You couldn't even get the ball past half court against these guys. It would have been very difficult for Showtime to even score 100 points against this team in that era.
Skip, tell the people at home, the last man to win 3 consecutive regular season MVPs was who? 1, Larry Joe Bird. That's what Magic Johnson was up against. That's what he was seeing. 3 times he won the regular season MVP. That's what Magic had to go through every year. Or he had to go through, let that sink in, Skip. For 8 years straight, he either had to go through the Sixers or the Celtics. Michael got Supersonic. Wow, they were loaded.
No mercy.
An excerpt from a recently released book details how Kevin Durant's jealousy of Steph Curry caused him to blow up at a reporter. Durant accused the reporter of attempting to, quote, rile up Steph's fans in an article that described the Warriors having to placate Durant. So, Shannon, are you surprised that KD was really this jealous of Steph Curry?
Skip, you remember I outlined this last year at some point in time, and KD took a shot at me. See, I didn't need a book to know. Because you know why, Skip Bayless? I spent 26 years of my life in locker rooms, and I saw what happened as I became a better and better player. My senior year, my teammates tried to vote me off the basketball team because I started to get a little bit more shine, and my coach said I was the engine, and they were tires. They tried to vote me off my senior year. I saw what when I got to Savannah State. And all of a sudden, I started to build, and I'm an All-American. I'm a black college All-American. All the scouts are starting to come. And I saw the envy and the jealousy that start. Skip, I said this. When I speak about things about athletes, Skip, I'm talking about, I try to take people inside on a personal level. I said what KD wanted. KD was a great, great player. But KD couldn't get the love that Steph and LeBron was getting because they were winning titles. KD says, if I go win me a title, everybody will love me. They did love KD more, but not more than Steph. And Skip, I use the analogy, the situation of new kids, new addition. You see, Skip, when they brought up Bobby Brown was the original member, Michael Bivens and Ronnie DeVoe, Michael Bell, Ralph Tresvant, those were the original members of the new edition from Roxbury out in Massachusetts. Okay, they started to break up. They brought on Johnny Gill. Johnny Gill could out-sing everybody. Ralph, Bobby, Ricky, Ronnie, all of them. But he couldn't get the love because he wasn't an original member. See, Skip, and KD, and see, this is what we know, Skip. Remember that article? You remember about a year ago, he said the thing that he disliked is that them fanboy media, that they love LeBron. They love LeBron. And what we're seeing in this book, that's twice, Skip, that's twice that he's upset at the media that they loving somebody else more than they love KD. Skip, what KD wants, KD went to a team and won a championship. He was the best player. There's no doubt. He's a better player than Steph Curry. But he wasn't going to get the love because Steph was their baby. They drafted Steph. They watched Steph rise. So he was never going to be bigger than Steph in the Warrior, in the Golden State Bay Area eyes. Now, Skip, everybody knew KD's the better player. And KD couldn't wrap his mind around that. I didn't need a book to tell me what I know, having been there and being able to observe. Because, see, Skip, when you're an athlete like you can see, like, Skip, they can't tell you anything about reporters. Somebody try to tell you about a reporter that you've been around and you know the business. You know certain things because you've been in the business and you've been around enough. When it comes to athletes and the mindset and how they think, and I watch them, Skip Bayless, they can't fool Shannon. That's why he took a shot at me, because it hit home. Skip, I love KD. I love what he is. And after spending time with his mom, when she came on our show twice, I like him even more. But this is what happened. KD wanted appreciation from the fans. That's what we play for. We play for three things. We play for respect, we play for trust, and we play for appreciation. And KD got appreciation, but not to the level of Steph Curry, and it bothered him.
So, my first response to this is I'm very happy we're getting to talk about Kevin Durant. He's been out of sight, out of mind as he heals from his Achilles surgery. But it's great to talk once again about the best player on the planet. Let's remind everybody, Kevin Durant, is the best player on the planet. Thank you very much. Yes, he is. So now, back to my side of the story. Kevin Durant took his first shot at me, I believe it was in the 2011 season, some 9 years ago, when he was an Oklahoma City Thunder in my hometown of Oklahoma City, and I was his biggest fan on ESPN. I was his biggest fan in his 1 year at the University of Texas. I predicted he would win multiple scoring titles. and he backed me up on that. But as big a fan as I was, all of a sudden, out of the blue one night, Kevin Durant called over the reporter for the Oklahoman, the paper in Oklahoma City, and blasted me saying I didn't know basketball because I was criticizing his teammate Russell Westbrook for taking more shots than Kevin was taking. Huh? Kevin, I'm trying to defend you, and you're blasting me for defending you? This is what I finally learned about Kevin Durant. He's not happy unless he's unhappy. He's always starting a fight with him, or him. He's always at some odds or at conflict with some reporter or Shannon Sharpe on Undisputed because that's what fuels him. He'll even pick fights on Twitter with somebody who lives in his mom's basement in Des Moines. He's got burner accounts on Twitter because he likes to go at it anonymously with people about Kevin Durant. He is the thinnest skinned superstar I have ever closely observed, and it ain't even close. But the weird part about this is all this fuels Kevin Durant to be the best player on the planet. When he went to Golden State, the NBA world was on the edge of its seat for him to fall on his face in that finals. And what did he do? He goes back-to-back finals MVPs. He goes into LeBron's house in back-to-back game threes and just takes the game over. I'd never seen anything like it. And I said, well, it almost seems like the more he's criticized, the more he fires back at his critics, the bigger and clutcher he plays. I don't get it, Shannon, but that's the truth. That's who this guy is, that he needs it to be at its worst for him to be at his best. So, yeah, he picked fights with Draymond, and he picked fights with Steph over who got the most acclaim and adoration from Warriors Nation, Dub Nation. I don't get it because in the end, as you point out, he was still the best player. He won Steph 2 rings, and he was on his way, I thought, to winning Steph another ring in the previous finals that we just saw until he blew his Achilles out. So I don't know. It's pretty weird to me that he can be such a good dude. I like Kevin. He's a good guy at heart. His heart's good, but he's got this one screw loose where he's got to fight. He's got to say, Russell Westbrook, I can't live with him. I'll never win with Russell Westbrook because I can't win with a ball-dominant point guard who gets to make every decision dribbling the ball up the floor. And he goes to Golden State, and he changes life in Golden State. I don't know. I don't always understand him, but I still respect the heck out of him.
Steph Curry is arguably the greatest superstar, the most selfless superstar. I don't know very many guys that would be 2-time regular season MVP, one of those unanimous. Go out, recruit a guy. It's my team, but I want you. It's your team. I'll take a back seat. I'll ride shotgun. It's my car, brand new. I'm riding shotgun now. Skip, but here's the thing, Skip, it's the same thing. Skip, LeBron was the better player in Miami than D. Wade, but it's Wade County. LeBron can win 5 titles in L.A. It's Kobe. KD, if you understand that, you would have been fine. That was never going to change, and that's never going to change. Someone that they saw grow up, Skip, I'm always going to be Glenville's own. Skip, I haven't lived in Glenville in 30 plus years. But I'm Glenville because guess what? I grew up there, Skip. They watched me grow up. They watched me see what I am today. They watched me from a baby to what I am now. So I'm always going to be there. They're going to embrace me. KD, you got to understand that, bruh. It doesn't make you less. But, Skip, he wanted that fan of praise. He wanted the media to love him like he believes the media loves Steph, like he believes the media loves LeBron. That's what he wants. It's not good enough for you to say and others to say he's the best player. He needs the fans because he don't hear the love that they give. And then Bob Myers got to be, he ruined it. Bob Myers ruined it, Skip. When that man got to that, hey, when he got up there and said what he said, he had a little bit too much to drink, Skip. Now, you know, my grandma say 3 people will tell you the truth. Drunks, kids, and angry people. And he had been celebrating, so he probably had too much to drink. And when he said what he said, I took a big gulp. I said, uh-oh, I don't believe he should have said that. That started the ball in motion. And then when Draymond did what he did, off went the monkey's head. That was it. It was over.
So did I just hear you say that you grew up and you were no longer a baby? Because occasionally it seems like you haven't grown up and you can still be a baby, just on occasions, right?
Yeah, okay. Just a little bit. All right, you guys hit all angles. You hit all angles. No mercy. Bob McGinn of The Athletic pulled 17 NFL scouts ranking the best receivers in the upcoming draft. CeeDee Lamb took the top spot by just 1 point over Jerry Jeudy, but Lamb had 10 first-place votes compared to Judy's 5. So, Shannon, are you surprised that CeeDee had more first-place votes than your guy, Jerry Jeudy?
No, I think it's very close. And these are the 2 best receivers in football, but I'm still taking Jerry Jeudy. His ability to separate, his ability to get in and out of breaks. And Skip, I think we have the video. I was trying to explain it to you last week of what makes Jerry Jeudy so unique. The imagination, the ability to separate of what Jerry Jeudy brings to the table. His ability to run after the catch, playing in a big-time program. He can play outside the numbers. He can play in the slot. But he's a very, very unique individual. Skip, and I believe it is close because CeeDee Lamb is slightly bigger. They're about the same speed. Jeudy might be a little faster. Great hands, great run after the catch. But I think the thing for me that distinguishes Jeudy is his ability to run routes. He's not technically sound. He's technically advanced. That's what separates them in my book. So I got no problem with people saying, well, you know, Jeudy, I believe Jeudy is slightly better. And some saying, CeeDee Lamb is slightly better than Jeudy. But for me, I like Jerry Jeudy and his ability to create separation at the top of the break.
Okay, here's why I told you from the start of last football season that I'll take CeeDee Lamb over Jerry Jeudy. As one scout told Bob McGinn about CeeDee, he just catches the crap out of the ball. That's what he does. He catches it and he runs with it. He's hard to get on the ground. One scout compared him to Anquan Bolden, and I like that because he plays so physically the way Anquan did. Now, another scout said this about Jerry Jeudy, and this puts him in the perspective I see him in. The scout said that Jerry Jeudy has lived in the ultimate football playground with speed merchants on the outside, point guard at quarterback in Tua, 5-star offensive line, draftable running back in Najee Harris who can catch it as well as run it. And Jerry Jeudy plays in the slot and was never pressed. Bingo. He's in the slot, Shannon, often with 3 other receivers split out wide who are going to be first-round picks. And when you're not pressed in the slot, you kind of play smaller than you measured. And if you're not pressed, if you don't have anybody nose-to-nose with you, you don't have to worry about getting off physical press coverage. Yeah, you can run technically advanced routes because you're kind of running against air. I think he's going to have a harder time in pro football if somebody drafts him and says, you're our number 1. I told you from the start, Jerry Jeudy's a 2. He's more of a slot receiver. CeeDee is a 1.
I love how he said he played the ultimate point guard. CeeDee Lamb's quarterback was Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray. The last 2 years, there was a number 1 overall draft pick. Okay, that. He also played next to Hollywood Brown, who was a number 1 draft pick. They didn't mention that. Kyler's offense last year in the league, he had the number 1 offensive line in college football. But that guy didn't mention that. Just Jerry Jeudy. Skip, I get it. If you want to highlight your guy, okay, fine. But don't try to highlight your guy and dismiss what he had, which was 2 number 1 overall draft picks at quarterback, a number 1 draft pick at wide receiver, the number 1 offensive line. Those running backs that he had was 6-7 yards a clip, over 1,000 yards rushing. So don't make it seem like CeeDee Lamb was playing with bum quarterbacks, that his offensive line was terrible, and they didn't have runners in the backfield. Don't do that. Make your point. Say, yes, this guy's tremendous after the catch. This guy has a huge catch radius. But when you bring in other things, okay, CeeDee Lamb had the same thing as Jerry Jeudy has. Tua, Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield. Okay, I get all that, Skip, but like I'm saying, it's close. But here's a Skip. And you know why guys don't get pressed? Why you think guys end up there why do you think guys are not trying to put their hands on Antonio Brown? Because you know if you press and miss, you're gone. He's gone. There's a very few people that you can press and make up that. You don't be really wanting to press Julio Jones. Why? Not only is he physical, Skip, the guy's 4'3". He gonna get up out of there. So you miss a guy like Jerry Jeudy, you press a guy like Odell and miss him, it's good night. That's why they don't press. And very few teams press the slot anyway, because normally, Skip, that guy has option. He has two ways to go. It's a lot easier to press outside than it is to press inside. I give you that. But Jerry Jeudy can also play outside of the numbers. So it's going to be very, very interesting. For me, I would take Jerry Jeudy because of his ability to separate at the top of routes.
Shannon, last year, CeeDee Lamb's quarterback was a guy Alabama rejected because he, quote unquote, couldn't throw. Jalen Hurts was the Oklahoma quarterback last year, and CeeDee Lamb was really the only go-to receiver, CD or bust, for Jalen Hurts, who improved, I thought, dramatically as a thrower of the football. I would draft him. I think you can win games with Jalen Hurts in the NFL. But CeeDee Lamb was it. And still, nobody, he got double and triple covered, albeit in the Big 12, which is a passing league. But nobody could stop him. Nobody could get him on the ground, even Texas.
Skip, you remember, it reminds me of a guy like Mike Thomas. You know Mike Thomas, he doesn't have anybody, does he, Skip? And guess what? Double and triple coverage and had 150 catches. So, Skip, if I want to get you the ball, I can get you the ball. And in the Big 12, where they don't really have defensive backs, bring that to the SEC.
The NBA horse semifinals and finals are tonight, which means we're going to see Chauncey Billups face Mike Conley and Zach LaVine squaring off against Allie Quigley, two of the best from Chicago. So, Shannon, I start with you. Who wins?
Skip, I really want to go with the home team in Chauncey, but I've seen the forecast. A friend of mine sent me a picture. There's about 4 feet of snow on the ground right now, and it's supposed to snow all day. I really don't know how Chauncey's going to play horse in those conditions while Mike Conley is in 70-degree climate-controlled NBA regulation gymnasium. So for me, I'm going to go with Mike Conley because I think Chauncey might have to forfeit this game.
Okay. I may be going heart over head here, but I am rooting for Allie Quigley, and I believe she can pull this off. Okay. I believe she can outshoot Zach LaVine if, in fact, he doesn't throw a bunch of dunk contests, sort of acrobatic moves at the basket at her. I love her driveway backboard because it's very forgiving there in Deerfield, the suburb of Chicago, and she is such a clutch, tough-minded, high backbone shooter that I believe she can outshoot Zach if he'll fight fair and just try to shoot shot for shot, backboard shots, deep shots, you know, any kind of wing shots. No. Stay there and that Allie could beat him.
Zach LaVine should definitely try not to fight fair. He should try to win this game. So whatever it's going to take. So if it means he has to touch the backboard with one hand and then come up on the other side and lay the ball in, that's what he should do. Skip, horse is about winning the competition, not playing down to the level of a competition so they can also have a chance to win. I'm trying to win.
I'm with Skip. Let's go, Allie Quigley. That is it for Undisputed. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, 9:30 a.m. Eastern. Have a good day, guys.